morning. Thanks for being here so bright and early. I appreciate that. My name is Monica Wheaton. I'm the Director of Customer Success with ECI Software Solutions. We do like Mark Systems, Lasso, LotView. We've got Build Tools, Bolt, and we just acquired InSearch. I'm really excited to be part of this conference today. And yesterday was so wonderful talking about all the different topics and housing transformation just in general. And so we're excited to continue those discussions today. So today this panel is gaining efficiencies with panelization and prefabrication. There is going to be a bit of interactivity that I'm going to ask you guys to do. It's basically just a survey that's going to be on your phones. I've been in the industry for over 25 years and grew up in the industry, in fact, and I actually don't know a lot about panelization and prefabrication until I talked with our panelist. And I found that quite a few mid-sized builders are probably in the same boat, and I kind of wanted to verify that. So we'll have a couple poll questions coming up in just a second. Let me switch this slide here. So today's presentation is about the theory of gaining efficiency by using prefabricated components and panelization. It's a well-known that you'll gain some efficiencies by doing that. It has been a challenge for many builders, as you know. Does it work in practice? Does it work in practice for mostly or all modular building or mostly stick builders that are more taking a more incremental approach? And so we're going to look at also modular building, so prefabrication, panelization, and modular building. And so I'm going to introduce our two panelists. We have Keith Anderson with us today and Ryan, and obviously they're not sitting up here, and there's only one chair that they're not going to share. They're with us today on Zoom. So hi, guys. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning.
Morning.
How are you?
I'm doing great. So we're going to actually go back to the slides real quick because I do have the poll questions that I was telling you about. So let's go back. This is a getting to know you. So as I said, please take out your phone. Go ahead and scan in that QR code, and I'm going to do the same thing. And what you're going to see on your phone is some questions. If we can get that. There we go. And the first question we have, this is just a test for us, just to make sure we're able to do it and that everybody's participating. So how are you doing today? I'm actually happy to be in sunny Phoenix. And this tool is very cool because you'll see as people are participating, it will show you in real time how everybody's feeling. So looks like most of us are happy to be in sunny Phoenix, so that's great. So if you miss the QR code or you don't have a scanner for a QR code, there's also a way to participate. You can go to that website, or you can even participate by text. Just text Monica W341 to that number 22333, and then you can choose A, B, C, or D. So this one was just a test. And the reason we're doing this too is because our panelists are experts today, and we want to make sure that they're sharing the information that you guys want to know. So it's very helpful for them to know what you guys, oops, did I go too far? Hold on. Yeah, this is the next question. So how long have you been building homes? And this one is interesting because depending on how long you've been building homes, you've been into your process for quite a long time. So sometimes it gets a little bit harder to visit with some of these newer things that are coming up. And so this is good to know. So go ahead, and it looks like pretty much everybody has responded that wanted to. So we've got 14% of our audience has been building for over 40 years. Now it's 13%. Most of you have been building for 20 or 30 years. That's great to see. A couple of new people in the industry. That's great. Less than 10 years. Great. Thank you for that. The next question is, how many homes do you build per year? And go ahead and respond there. And again, as you know, sometimes there's more efficiencies of scale if you're building more homes. And so, it's just kind of nice to know how many homes per year. And that actually reflects well with the audience that we were expecting at this conference. So 63% of our audience is building 51 to 250 homes, 59%. So cool, thank you for that too. And then last question, what is your experience with prefabrication and modular? So these are a little bit longer answers, so I'll go ahead and read them. So we are currently building modular homes or are seriously looking into modular building. We are using prefabrication on most of our projects, just getting started. very limited testing it out, and then none at all. So go ahead and answer there. And again, part of the reason for this too is because we don't really have a presentation for you. These guys are available to answer our questions. And so I have several questions that I'm going to ask them, but we also encourage you to ask questions as well. So there's no dumb question, right? I mean, if you don't know anything at all about panelization, it's totally fine to ask these guys whatever you want to know. So it looks like based on these results, we have about 6% that are currently building modular homes or are seriously looking into modular. That's great. 11% using prefab on most projects, 6% just getting started, 33% that have been looking into it, and 44% that are not using modular at all. So great. So again, just kind of to re-emphasize what I was saying before, if you want to go somewhere, it's best to find someone who has already been there. And we are lucky enough to have those two people who have been there and have been doing this for several years with us today. So if we can go back to our panelists, I'm going to go ahead and have Keith introduce himself, if you will. Keith?
Absolutely. I'm Keith Anderson. I was the Executive Vice President of Operations for the third largest home builder, which is NVR. We built about 23, this year we're going to build about 23,000 homes. And so everything is, all about efficiencies and how can we, and turnaround time, especially with the supply chain challenges we are having today. I retired 2 years ago, and now I'm doing something that I started 2 businesses because I can't sit still. And but I'm also getting into home building again. Starting my own home building company up in Wisconsin. That's my hometown I grew up in, and they have a need for it, so I figured I'd fulfill it. And so I'm looking forward to getting that venture going. So I have both extremes. From a low volume to a high volume builder experience.
Cool, thank you very much. And Ryan, can you introduce yourself, please?
Sure. Hello, everybody. My name is Ryan Leusch. I'm the Chief Technology Officer for S2A Modular, and we're a modular builder that is in the process of building multiple factories. We've got some in Patterson and California areas, southern and northern. Waco, Texas is already happening. Jacksonville, Keith's home state of Wisconsin, we're going in near Sheboygan. And we're doing thousands of homes, a lot of communities, 55 and olders. We have that ability to adapt to what the needs are and what people want. We can do everything from a ADU, granny flat, whatever you want to call them, to high rises and industrial, commercial, multifamily, multi-use, all of those, everything in between. So we're kind of forced into building our own factories because if for those that are familiar with modular, a lot of the modular companies don't actually own their factory, and it's a little hard to sometimes maybe get in there and teach old dog new tricks. And a lot of the things we're doing is in the ESG place, where the environmental, social, and governance, if you're not familiar, but a lot of green building. And some of the older factories that have been around a long time, they just weren't getting to where we were needing to get. So we're kind of forced, and that's what we're doing now, is building our own factories and starting to go nationwide. We'll have 35 factories is the goal for the next few years.
Great, thank you. And Ryan, your title is Chief Technology Officer. Can you talk a little bit about that title and what it is your responsibilities are?
So in my position, what I'm doing is I'm bringing in the renewable energies and, looking at everything that's as cutting edge as we can find, and, everything from generation, whether it's solar or hydrogen, things like that. And, looking at the battery solutions and storage solutions, everything from residential to commercial and industrial. Also, we look at the whole picture. We look at the green building holistically. So there's a lot of things I look at. I look at water. Can we harvest? Can we repurpose? Can we, we do things like we generate for drinking water, pull humidity, turn that into water. We look at lighting, eliminating electromagnetic fields and getting rid of the EMFs. And we actually make our own organic building materials so we can preserve a lot of natural resources, right? And the whole goal of green building is to eliminate those negative effects on our climate and our environment. So when we're using these kind of approaches, we're able to do that. And that's really the core of what I do, is look at all the technologies. Been in renewable energies for a long time. And, as a lot of people out there probably know, it's a lot more affordable to build from scratch in a renewable and green environment than it is to retro. A lot more expensive, a lot more work, takes a lot longer to retro. So that's why we focus on new builds.
Cool, great, thank you. And thanks both of you for the introductions. And what I'm going to do is actually focus on Keith for just a bit. I have some questions. And like I said, we want you guys to ask questions as well. We do, I believe, have a microphone out in the audience. And so I will ask my questions, but I'm not, I don't have to run this whole thing. And so if you have a question, just raise your hand and we'll get the microphone over to you so you can ask that question as well, okay? So the first question that I have, and Keith, you didn't really talk too much about it, but when you first came into the home building industry, what was the industry you were in before?
I oversaw operations for an automotive supplier. So I was really entrenched in the automotive industry. And I got recruited by NVR after 10 years. And I was in automotive for 10 years. And then before that, I was 10 years with a check printing company. So they were all different widgets. It's just a matter of, how you produce them. And I don't care if it's a big house or a small check. It's the same process and understanding it.
So what were some of the efficiencies, do you remember when you first started that you found in the field? What were some of the main things that you noticed that builders weren't doing correctly?
Well, the business wasn't set up to be cohesive. I mean, it wasn't, it wasn't a standardized operation. They had you're as good as your region, you're as good as your division. And so what we first did was centralize a lot of operations so that we can capitalize on, if you've got 6,500 employees, you got 17 regions and almost 70 divisions. We started doing best practice capturing. And then we saw, hey, that's pretty cool. Why can't we do it there? Can't we do it there? And that was about 5 years of that process where we met once a month with the regional production managers. And then of course, during the 2007 to 2010 process, if you didn't change your outlook and you didn't change the way you do business, chances are you're not doing business today. The top 10 suppliers for us in 2005 aren't even on the top 10, not even aren't even on our list anymore. They refused to change their model. And we were going to change, how we did business. So we introduced parts and pieces. We got into pretty heavily in regards to major takeoffs. Was it a little bit harder up front? Yeah, but at the end, it was well worth the payoff. No more turnkey bids, no more turnkey payments. That just doesn't work. We continue to build plants. We're vertically integrated. So that we always use about 2 to 3 hours as the furthest we want to be from any one community. But we don't want to stick build. It's very inefficient. Quality is suspect. And, we wanted to have the panels delivered and put up in a timely fashion and pretty much focus on doing it all right the first time. And I think when you go through a plant, you'll see why the efficiencies are there. And our plants got to the point where we were building panels, a house every 18 minutes. We were doing over 300 houses in a week for one plant. And it was just nonstop.
That's great. And how did you get started with panelization? How did that?
Oh, years before I got there. The machinery and the layouts of the plants have changed over the time. But it's as I'm starting this new business and in the small home builders, I mean, I'll probably do 50 homes this year. There's no way I would start it without panelizing, especially up in Wisconsin, because that's, if you're stick building and in below zero, weather, you're going to have inaccuracies. You're going to have people cutting corners, and that's not how we want to build that house. So when you look at the cost comparison between panelization and overall, you got to look at all of that that's included in the service calls, and so it's something you have to look at all together.
So if for like a builder who's never done this before, where would you say would be the best place to get started, or how is the best way to start?
I tell you, you'd be surprised how many component plants are across the country. The people, and you just start going on the internet and finding out where they're at, and then finding a component plant that's near you, sitting down and getting educated on how the panels are put together. What other things can they do for you? We started putting windows in the panels. We started, obviously staircases. We started doing dormers. We started doing, as much as we possibly can in the plant, we will. And, the decision of buying and getting a warehouse and doing it yourself is usually around the 1,000 home level. Once you get to about 1,000 homes in an area, you could probably go ahead and get started. To panelize, I don't care how small you are. I think the efficiencies are pay off immediately. So going outsourced, but if you ever wanted to bring your own plant in-house, it's usually about 1,000 homes to benefit it.
So one of the other things we had talked about is basically the fear of the unknown. So panelization sounds wonderful, but then you have to obviously assemble that in the field, and everything doesn't always come together very well.
What's happening now is these component plants are now bringing labor to the site. And so you don't have to have people who'd never panelized before and try to find them. You got people out there that will not only make the panels, but labor will come out with the panels, and crane them in and drop them off and pretty much do everything up to the point of, before siting. So in fact, that's the partnership I got in Wisconsin, is it's a turnkey process. And they have, you're always going to have labor, you're always going to have freedom, and that's a good feeling, knowing I won't have to worry about that labor. So that's how you get started.
And what about some of the challenges of the assembly in the field? As far as, we talked a little bit about making sure the panels fit on the foundation and those kinds of things. How do you control for that?
Obviously the concrete guys have to be talking to the panel guys. And of course, panelization has to take ownership. Only takes one or two of those to all of a sudden say, okay, this is what we're going to do differently. But will you have that? Yeah, you'll have that, because you still have human interaction and human error. But it doesn't take many of those. You'll figure it out pretty quick. It's something they can work through.
Cool. And then I've had several builders that I've talked to that have looked at prefab seriously, but then they just can't justify the switch. What would you tell them? I know you're saying efficiency, but they're running into issues with the cost and the efficiency in the field, the framers. It doesn't feel like the technology is there. It's not going to work for them.
Yeah. It all matters of carrying costs. How long do you carry the house on your books? It comes to, scrap, how much scrap is being thrown away by stick building. If you look at a per square foot charge, panelization is going to be more expensive, but there's a lot of other costs that if you're not putting that into consideration, you're kidding yourself. So just those two things, between carrying costs and cutting a couple weeks off here and there and turning the house, quality. If you look at your service spend and see what, I was talking to one builder who spends $8,000 a house on average in service. When you look at bow studs, or you're looking at all the stuff that, having the wood sit outside until the framers are ready to frame it, you're asking for quality issues. but you're not putting that into consideration in your cost model. If you are, great, and then it is what it is. But there's a lot of other hidden costs that you've got to make sure you're capturing.
Great, thanks. Those are the questions I really had for Keith. Before I move on to Ryan, does anybody have any questions? And obviously we'll come back and have an open session after this, but any other questions you want to ask? Yeah. Hold on, they're coming over with the microphone right now.
What would be the normal size of homes that y'all panelize? Square footage?
All sizes. I mean, we go from our Simply Ryan group, which is about 1,200 square feet, all the way up to the NV houses out in the East Coast, which can get up to 10,000 square feet. You just have more trucks go to the site, so it really isn't a matter of size of the house. It's just a matter of, when you take the trucks too. I mean, it's a shame to drop all those loads off and they're not ready and they're not going to be framing them or putting them together for, a couple of weeks, and then you got exposure to the weather and things like that. So we have to really plan our logistics to make this work. Townhomes, we do townhomes and multifamily, and it's been great because, it could be a big 8-pack, and we'll deliver the wood for maybe the first 4 and the other 4, and then we'll drop the trim off. The trim's not sitting out there collecting, getting exposure to the weather. So yeah, any size home you can panelize.
As far as customization is concerned, do y'all build off of CAD plans?
Oh, absolutely. And, we use MyTech. MyTech is not only supplies the machines, but they also supply the software. The software is called Sapphire. That's who we use, but there's several out there. And they'll come in and literally work with you on how you operate and how you want to operate. We take takeoffs to a whole nother level. I mean, I know every screw that goes into a house, and then when we take that stuff out to bid, it's per how many screws per, package or whatever. But if you really want to fine tune your business, you have to be very good at takeoffs and never, ever take a turnkey bid from anybody. I don't care who they are or what phase it is. If an electrician comes in for an increase, great, what increased? Well, the copper wire went up. Okay, then that's a legitimate increase. But I'm not giving you an increase in outlets. I'm not giving you an increase in labor because none of that changed. So you've got to manage your total phase. And by using this type of software and then being able to implement it, and you'll see the changes immediately when you panelize. Sometimes it takes builders 5-6 months to make a change if the electrician is saying, hey, we got a problem here. With Sapphire and with the panelization, you can make that change that pretty much day, which also saves you money because people will come to you and say, hey, you're allowing me to have this much more material. I mean, when I walk into a house and I see pigtails on the electrician and I see him hanging all the way down to the floor, hey, we're giving you too much freaking copper. And we'll tune back the takeoffs pretty quick, and we can do it pretty quick. But when you're using MyTech and Sapphire, that's all tied up in the panels.
So we have a table here full of questions. One of the questions was trying to determine maybe a ballpark figure of what a package would run for, say, a 2,000 square foot 2-story.
Now, remember, I retired 2 years ago. So I have old numbers in my head. But I've been talking to a lot of component plants lately and what they're at. It wouldn't be surprising to be, a small, Simply Ryan, a small, affordable house of 1,100, 1,200 feet. He's probably about 40,000, 50,000 for the package. When you look at a big mammoth, it's probably over 120,000 of materials and panelized.
Great, thank you. Oh, one more? Or we can do more than that.
Is it okay?
Yes, please.
Keith, thanks for being here. Thanks for sharing. We appreciate your insights. So I build in the Atlanta market. I'm a faithful panel builder in Texas. I did thousands of homes in Texas, no problem. Come to Atlanta, been there for a decade, have a hard time finding, my purchasing people keep saying, it's kind of a follow-up on Monica's question, keep saying they can't find the savings, can't find the savings. Where's the tipping point for you when you say it's worth it anyway?
It's not even a question if I'm going to do panelization. I've built enough houses that, stick building doesn't hold a candle to it. But what's important to you is, quality. That's got to be drive force. You got to know how many structural errors that you're going back and servicing, which could be a 10-year period, even though you don't warrant it. If we have a call from a home builder that's 10 years ago, we'll probably still go over and fix it. When you look at the chopping 2 weeks off, and the average carrying cost is, a couple $100 a day, and multiply that, all of a sudden you're saving $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 just by carrying costs. And then when you look at the install of the windows, I mean, we have all our panels come already installed, but then you add up, the labor to install windows, and then make sure that the flashing is 100% correct each and every single time. Go back and look at your quality records and see how many houses that you had you had water infiltration. And then you see that that your houses are being done the right way every single time. So it all depends on what's important to you. To me, I really emphasize the next sale. That's why quality to me is in the top. Price will always be the driving force, but you also have to get the next sale. And there's people buy homes every 4 years, 5 years, and we have a lot of repeat customers. So that to me is the sales for the future. So that's why I don't even hesitate and question anymore.
Thanks. And one follow-up. Are you also pre-drilling for mechanicals when you build those panels?
Yes.
Plumbing and electrical?
Yep. That's another hidden cost and you got to get that money from the electrician. How much money are they saving by not having to do all that drilling, and such. And then you also know they're not drilling through an LVL or whatever, so that integrity of the structure isn't jeopardized. So, that's all that stuff is done. We pre-build dormers. We do floor panels, and we make sure that they're screwed in on the OSB versus nailed in. I mean, there's a lot of things that you can do that you normally wouldn't do out in the field because it takes too long or whatever.
Another question?
Hi, I had 2 questions. Ryan, what capital costs to set up a new panelization plant? How much do you think it's going to cost?
Are you so Ryan does modular mostly, then so Keith would probably be able to answer that question.
Set up a brand. Well, he said it was brand new panelization plant.
We just set up Richmond, and that was about a little over 12 million. It was a building already available. It wasn't a new structure. We always look at rails. If you can ship your material in by rail and they deliver it, so there's some hidden secrets you got to do when you set up your own plant. But with the equipment and everything, and with the cost of the building and everything, we were able to do it for about 12 million.
And then do you on the multifamily ever set up like mini ones on site? Like a temporary structure? No, you do everything.
We do everything in the factory and deliver it. When you deliver a package, we use a company called Home Run, which delivers the package, and you literally, it rolls right off the truck, with the trusses and everything. And so you're not spending hours to go and with the penny bone to pick up these packages and dropping them off and getting them staged. If you use these roller trucks, very efficient. And once again, the money you're saving by not having to unpack the package, it's incredible.
All right, one more question, and then we're going to move on to Ryan. And then this isn't the end of the question period, so just hold it till the end. So go ahead.
Well, what percentage discount should you get from your framer? We come from a place where this is not the norm. How much time and between the time difference and then the cost?
So to give you an idea, we pay our people in the factory, a little low 20s, because you're in a warm climate in the winter, So, compared to the $30 to $35 an hour that you pay for a field rep, so we expect, if you're going to continue working with us, now we had size as a leverage. If we're the top builder in your market, people want to do business with us, but we're not going to do it at a premium. So there, we sort of manage and sort of just said, this is what we're going to pay. I know a lot of you guys are they get to pick their builders now, the framers, but there's a lot of options out there. You got Amish, you've got a lot of people that are, buying or getting into framing relationships that are co-oping. There's several builders in your area that will work together so that they can leverage their volume and working with the local framers. But if you literally are making their lives easier, they have to prove to you that this doesn't cost you any less. Common sense is they'll see it because we do time studies in front of them. See, now you don't have to do this, you don't have to do this, you don't have to do this. And you don't think I should get a reduction on that? I mean, come on, let's work together. By the way, you get to go onto another house. You can do this when you have a backlog, and if they see the backlog, they would rather have, they rather go on to the next house than just stretch out the old house and try to, I hate when market's bad because they slow down and they stretch out the job way past the hours that they've been given.
Keith, just a real quick follow-up question on that. So you said you have the framers in the factory. Are they the same ones that then assemble in the field as well? Or do you have two different crews?
These guys are factory workers, non-union, of course. And, but it's, we call them framers, but, they're just putting the wood on the line and, they just do it by hand the machines do it all. If you ever go through, absolutely, even if you're considering this, you need to go through a plant before you truly understand, before you write it off. Right here, and bring a list of paper with all the things you won't have to do in the field. Okay, so, and then you tell me that there isn't money there. And if you like, call me up and I will take you to the plant and I will literally show you every aspect of the plant that you will save if you want to, because I will prove it to you. That's how strongly I believe about it.
Cool, thank you. Thank you very much. I'm going to move on to Ryan now, and then we can come back for sure to that next. So Ryan has already introduced himself, so let's, can we go back to the Zoom? Can you hear me, Ryan?
I sure can.
Okay, there you go. Okay. So as you know, Ryan does mostly modular, so we're going to now start talking about modular and his experience with modular. Do you have any comments you want to add on anything that Keith had said, or should we just dive into some of the questions I have here?
We can dive in. I would just say that, I would echo, 100% of everything that, Keith was bringing up. Everything he said is absolutely factual. The difference with factory builds and the efficiencies and all that, absolutely. I would just, for us, we're more of like Legos as opposed to, if that makes sense, as opposed to panelization. When you're in modular, we've got those advantages of we're just delivering boxes. We're just playing with Legos. We tell people all the time. So we're actually bringing the whole thing. So the gentleman asked, is everything drilled and ready? We don't do that to make it easier for the trades. We're actually doing all of that work in our factory. So 90% of our stuff is done, and then we just take the boxes out and put the Legos together. So we're not worrying about, saving costs on the electrical or the plumbing or the framing, and even inspections are done at the state level in our factory. So we're like, the cities can't even red ink anything that we do. We show up, it's already state approved. They can come look at it if they want, but they can't touch it. So those kind of things, that's kind of the contrast, I guess, where some of maybe the the efficiencies come in. And like, again, echo everything that Keith said. When you start looking at waste, we don't have a lot of waste. We got too much of this or left over this, we're just using it on the next home that's on the assembly line. When you think about modular, if you got questions, I could go on and keep going on to keep going clarity of what I'm talking about. If you'd rather just ask
You can go ahead and keep talking. Yeah. And
Okay.
when you're done, I'll ask my questions. Yeah.
Okay, so for everybody that's out there, just to kind of help, I guess one of the things, if you're not real familiar with modular, that the education incline is the biggest challenge. Because personally, I wish it wasn't called modular, because when I didn't know what modular was, first time I heard it, I was like, no, mobile, piece of crap. It's a mobile home, right? But people don't realize it's same codes, it's the same builds. We're just doing it indoors instead of outdoors. It's all inspected, same thing. It goes on to MLS as an SFR, appreciates, doesn't depreciate like mobile. So when, like, I think Keith said it earlier, factory built, system built, I think that's a better way to look at everything. Panelization, modular, it's system built stuff. It's the same thing. We just don't have to worry about the weather and the theft and the waste and, all those things that go along with stick built. So I think it really just the education incline is where a lot of people we've found that over the years have, kind of the light bulb has gone off and they go, that's it, I'm not doing stick built anymore. And, we get more and more orders because Keith said it very well. Until you go to the factory and see it happen, I don't think you're going to actually get how much you really do save. It's one thing to say, oh, what am I going to say? Well, 15%, 20%, maybe 30%. Who knows the area and who knows how much you're going to get done, right? And how much you're trying to implement, how many technologies, how much green building are you really trying to put into it? That's the big thing. When you look at factory things like that, your ROI comes a hell of a lot quicker in a factory situation because of those efficiencies and because of all that stuff. So that's just, just kind of give a little contrast of how we kind of see it and what's happening every day, how other modular builders are coming to us, other people that have built stick. I mean, I've got a friend that's been building, he's a personal friend since high school, but he's been building for over 25 years. And the last 3 years, he hasn't built one stick. And him and his father have done hundreds of homes per year for 2 decades. And he's like, I'm done. We're factory built, whether we're doing panelization or we're doing modular. He's like, I'm not doing stick built. I'll do the least amount I can do because all those efficiencies are there.
That brings up my, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I'm just saying, and plus you can't trust your labor. They're gonna, if another builder came in and offered them a nickel more, goodbye. Everybody understands what they'll move to the next builder for a nickel more. So yeah. I can't deal with that variable.
Our factory workers is a valid point. They don't want to leave. They get to hop in their car. All of their equipment's there. They're not rolling stuff out before they just show up to the factory. Their lunch is there. They got a controlled environment. We're getting millimeter cut tolerances. It's just assembly line. So again, for those who don't understand modular, not familiar, haven't been to a factory, think about it like a Henry Ford, right? It's the car. The line just moves every 2 hours. So the guy that's doing the framing isn't moving over and doing electrical. The framers stay there. They're just doing the next piece. And that they get so good at it and they get so efficient. It's just, anything you do repetitively, you just get very good at it. And again, that millimeter cut tolerance is just the workers, and like to Keith's point, laborers, they don't want to leave. They're telling their friends and their family, you need to work here. This is so nice. All of our equipment's here. We're not hauling stuff back and forth. We're not doing all that stuff. We're not outside with frozen hands trying to get good cuts.
Or look at workman's comp.
Yeah.
People aren't falling off roofs. People aren't doing all the things, falling into the foundation. You don't get hurt. I mean, I'm not there anymore, so I don't know if I jinxed anybody, but accident rates.
But you're right, Keith. Yeah, there's just so many variables, and and the list goes on and on. You could just talk about it all day, and until you go into the factory and see it get done, I don't think the light bulb pops on. But once you do, it makes a heck of a lot of sense.
So can you talk to me a little bit more about how like a traditional builder, a stick builder would do modular? Like how, then if it's all built in the factory, then what's left for a builder to do? Or how do you get involved with that?
Yeah, sure. We have certified installers because, again, Keith brought up the point. The concrete guys have to be in sync with the panelization or the modules that come in. Those all got to be done. So there's a place where we have certified installers. We teach them exactly what we're doing and all of that. So we have scenarios where if somebody wants to come in and they say, hey, listen, I got my boots on the ground. I want to handle all the site work. I want to do as much as I can do. We've got some people that just literally have us deliver the boxes and they fasten them up. And we're fine with that as long as, they understand this is, you better have your concrete guys on point. You better have these things in line. You better do it this way. You're going to run into problems. And those that understand it really succeed. I'll use that example again of that friend of mine. He's really caught on his first run. He'll be the first one to admit he didn't look closely enough at the trees in the forest on the little things. And that, like, again, I keep going back to what Keith's saying, but I just echo everything he says. If you're real good at takeoffs and you're really, you measure 15 times before you cut once, everything's going to go fine. But you really need to do that. You need to do that diligence.
Well, and I talked a lot about the benefits. What are some of the biggest challenges that you run into?
Yeah, there is, there's some disadvantages. One of them, again, is the misperception. I mean, that education incline, that right off the bat, people hear modular. I was the same way when our president came to me and he's like, hey, start putting all these technologies into my house. I'm like, I'm not doing that for mobile homes, man. And he's like, no, modular, so that perception right there is one of the biggest hurdles. Some of the things is, shipping, and a lot of people don't understand when you're moving boxes instead of panels, we need to have certain roads, right? We're not going to get up a windy road in San Francisco. We might have to helicopter that in. So we start looking at those kind of costs and what is the travel? What is the cost to move that there? Sometimes it's just not going to be feasible. It's just not going to work. It's just going to be too difficult. And we're probably not going to be able to get those boxes up there. And you may need to do panelization because I'd rather do that than I would stick for sure. And maybe you do get the panels there a lot easier. So that's another challenge. But other than that, a lot of things have been, a lot of things have changed. And I think, people start to look at it newer and start going to these factories. And again, not trying to talk, about our factory per se, but our factory is very different. We've got a team that's very extensive in the industry. They've been there, 30 plus years. And these guys are modular guys. They know that this is like, well, if this was done this way 20 years ago, 15 years ago, 10 years ago, we wouldn't have this problem, this problem, this problem, and this problem. So we built those things per what their utopian dream of a modular factory is. And now we've eliminated a lot of the things that would have been holdups. So I would just say moving and shipping and getting them there. That's probably the biggest one.
And you talked about, so what are some of those costs as far as transportation is concerned?
Just to give you a range, we're right now nationally, we're roughly about $9 a mile to move something there. So if you look at that cost, you throw that into there. Well, we'll ship anywhere to 500 or 600 miles. We'll ship 1,000 miles away if somebody wants to pay the cost. We don't have a problem doing that. But you find that spot. But when you start adding it up, it really isn't that much. If you talk about hey, it's 100 miles away or whatever, 9 times 100, is that going to stop you from doing a job? Not really, especially when you look at how much you're saving and holding costs. Again, Keith said it, but holding costs are huge. That's probably the biggest factor to most people. I mean, and the state inspections that, the city, everybody knows how fun they are, right? They come out there and they take their time, they get there when they get there. Well, our inspectors, those state inspectors are there like every other day in the factory inspecting as it goes. So by the time it's put out to the yard and we start to stage and ship, those are already inspected. There's nothing for city to do until we get there and it becomes civil.
Cool. Thank you, Ryan. That pretty much, I was checking off all my questions as you were talking, so I answered quite a few of them, which is great. Does anybody have questions for Ryan that you want to ask right now? Yeah. Over here. Yeah.
Ryan, talk to me a little bit about what I need to do as a builder as far as site work. What do I need to do as far as plumbing and foundation, and what needs to be ready when your trucks arrive?
Yeah. So when the boxes get there, you're looking at the typical stuff, right? You're going to do the feasibility study we do for people, but the things that come along with that, the topologies, the soils, those kind of things, the grading, if you want to do that. Again, we always tell people we're step one to step done, unless you don't want us doing all those steps. If you want to do them, we can just deliver boxes. So what you're asking me, I would say, is really going to be determined upon what you're wanting or what you're willing to do, right? If you're a builder, hey, I got my guys on the ground, we'll do the grading, we'll get the concrete guy in there. Then all we're doing is delivering. So it's hard to quantify what exactly you need to do until we actually talk about the project. What do you want to do? And then it's up to you. One thing to understand, to your point, is, and this is an important piece, everybody, is, the last 10%, when I say like 90% is done in the factory, that last 10%, that really dictates design. Whether you're trying to do, Victorian or whatever you're trying to do, Mediterranean look, that's at the end. That's the 10%. If you want to have that look and that style, that comes in that last point. So when you ask, what would we need to do? Well, if you want those things done and you want to do it a certain way, that would absolutely be up to you. But we'll do everything from step one to step done if somebody wants it. Hope that answers it.
Let me also add to that. Right now, because of the cost of lumber and the cost of other all supply costs and such, there's a company that's at the trade show right now that you need to stop at their booth, and that's called the Monoslab Easy Form. And what we do in my new home building, especially in the Northern Hemisphere, you are literally just digging 6 inches down. You're putting this form in, which is now going to meet all the energy code requirements that are coming out in 2022. You're no longer having to dig down to the frost line. You no longer have to build your stem walls. And you're saving $6,000-7,000 a house. And then if my buyers want a basement, I sure as hell will give it to them. But it's an option. Basements are options, and I'm doing slab on grade as a standard base house. And we've been forced in this situation because of the supply chain. I'm going to take money out of the house, but I'm not going to change the quality of the house. How often are people using the basement? If basement's important to you, I'll sell you a basement. But that's going to be our moving forward. And you want to talk about building houses in the future? That will definitely be part of it. So stop at the booth, Monoslab Easy Form, and get more information.
Yeah. And you tapped on something too, if I could add. You're right. Somebody asked earlier about customization. With modular, you can customize anything. We've got models that you can look at, but if you look at, hey, model 22, I really like this, but I wish the garage was on this side, or I wish the deck was over here. That's a real easy fix. And, compared to stick, anybody that's ever had a home built knows what architecture cost and design cost. You're talking about $1 to $2 a square foot to do a full custom design on a modular. That's a huge savings right off the bat.
Corey, do you have another question? Go ahead.
It's actually, this is David from Westchester Modular, and actually our company, years ago, we ran a stick build company and a modular company. We started doing modular, and we actually found we could integrate both companies under one umbrella. And what we end up doing, we still run both companies, it's just changing letterhead in the printer is all it is. And we actually find we use modular primarily for single family, but when we start getting and building big multifamilies, school projects, whether you're doing dormitories or things like that, where one of their concerns is how much activity is happening on the site, modular has given us just stratospheric advantages over a conventionally framed project for disruption to the site. And also mixed use facilities. When you think modular, you think panelized. It doesn't necessarily have to be exclusively that. You can blend disciplines really easily together. So if you have retail on the first floor or offices and then apartments above, it is unreal, the efficiency that you get. And if you're building in cities, it's so easy to do modular. You bring them in, you set them, and you're done. Also, you protect we all know what's happened with pricing and materials. Our theft rate goes down totally because all the stuff's already in. The walls are sheetrocked. So there is no lumber load that somebody can go pilfer out of because it's already done. So, again, that's just from our experience. I've been doing it a long time, and we were able to integrate 2 companies, cut overhead way down. People talk about cost savings, modular versus conventionally framing. In our market, which is the Northeast, there's 0 savings from a true dollar and cent. I never, ever push the savings attribute. I push the efficiency attribute and the timing attribute and the carry cost and the loss rate and everything else, which all does generate revenue, and also it allows your volume to go up, so your net gross can go up as well. So anyhow, that's just my 2 cents from experience on it.
Thank you for that. Awesome.
Very much so. Thank you.
Yeah, great points.
Great. Any other questions? Yeah. And you can ask questions of either Keith or Ryan as well. So, yeah.
Hey guys, thanks for your time today. Keith, this is Ryan Leusch with CBUSA. Good to see you again, old buddy.
Hi, Ryan. How are you?
I went out to dinner with Dave Lynch last night, by the way. Hey,
I'm so sorry.
at CBUSA, we're big believers in off-site construction. Several of our members are in here today. It's the way of the future 20 years from now, and whether it's modular or panelization. We had Jerry McCoffey with Integra come in and speak to our organization last year, and some of you guys were there. I mean, he had a really interesting thing about a BMW being built out in the mud. They dropped off all the pieces to the BMW, and watching it be built outside is like absurd. But we build houses out there, so I think the bottom line is the more things you can do prior to getting it outside, the better it is. They do it in Europe all over the place. It's coming this way, whether we like it or not. And the biggest thing is our builders had a hard time thinking custom. How do you do this with full custom? But you can still do it, and you better listen to what these guys are saying, because it's coming, and you're either going to get swept up in the wake, or you're going to be part of the change coming. So we're big believers in everything. So thank you guys for everything you're saying, and I think this is the way it's going.
Appreciate it, Ryan. I want to remind people about the automotive industry, just because I've spent 10 years in that. As a supplier to automotive, they used to pretty much assemble all parts and pieces into the plant. Now they build the parts and then they snap them on, so they pretty much have all the components already pre-built. And then when they get on the line, they just plug it in and ready to go. They were able to increase the line speed and also be able to reduce the scrap by buying these parts already pre-assembled, and so that is what's going to happen to home building, as sure as I'm standing here or sitting here.
Hey, Keith, one more question. A builder that wants to get started with this, and they're doing 10 or 20 or 30 homes a year, and they don't have any connections to any component plants, where does a builder like that start? How do you find the step 1 and step 2? I'm sitting here with Rachel from Huntsville, and it was a question she had, and it's a great one. Like, how do you find something close to you? How do you start designing some things, and what's step 1 and 2 to actually do it?
Here again, the internet is the most important tool you have. You don't know what you have until you really redo the research. And then networking. Go on LinkedIn, look up component plants. Or people who are near your area, and connect with them. I'm a LinkedIn junkie. I get more and more people giving me information I had no idea about, because I just did the background check, understanding how to do that. After this, if you could send me your address, let me just play around with it and see who I come up with in Huntsville, or the state of Alabama or whatever. But, I will, and people will drive. I found a component plant about 4 hours away up in northern Wisconsin. And they're one of the largest component plants in Wisconsin. But they'll drive 5-6 hours if they need to. So anyways, I will have that as my things to do list.
I would add one thing too, that, just everything that Keith just said too, but there's just nothing like being there in person. If you can, we've had people fly out from Florida to California just to see things. And if you can get there in person, I think that carries a lot of weight to just see it, feel it, touch it. I would just have to, look at multiple and go ask the hard hitting questions and be pragmatic. Cause sometimes when rubber hits the road, it's a little different story than the initial, yeah, we can do that. We can do that, but go see if they can and say,
Yeah.
prove it, prove it. Show me you can. I got too many houses to build here. I can't hope. I need you to show me.
Any other questions?
Is my contact information on your?
It is on the, well, we can show the slides real quick again if you'd like, if you can, please. And then we'll have that up there for a second.
My email address is pretty easy. Yeah, there it is. Keith@on3.ai.
Yeah, so there's their contact information. So if you have any questions that you didn't want to ask here, you can definitely email either Keith or Ryan, and they can answer those for you. I'm actually going to go real quick to the next slide, which, and this should say also modular. If you want to do this, you're more than welcome to. This is our, going back to our poll, and it should already still be in your phone. If you want to type in any thoughts about, it's kind of like this word thing, just to kind of get a temperature check on what you guys are thinking about prefabrication, panelization, and modular as well. And the word, whatever you type in, will show up here. And it looks like it's thinking. There we go, motivated, great. It's good to see people are motivated. I think, yeah.
Is that supposed to say no brainer?
It's the future, yep, maybe, yeah. Yeah, it's definitely something to think about for sure. Cool, this is fun. Thank you guys for participating. I really appreciate that. Great.
I love this software.
Isn't this neat?
This is really cool.
Yeah,
Very cool.
I'm glad I figured this out. Yeah, if anybody ever wants to do it, it's just polev.com. It is an app you can load into any kind of PowerPoint, and then you can do these kinds of things and polls and many other types of things. So I think we pretty much, we got a few more coming in. So, cool. All right.
And I do know people that can help hold your hand in the beginning, and that used to work for us, but no, they're on their own and they're setting up these plants across the country. So, if you were looking at a consultant process, I know people who can help you.
Cool. And I think that's it for our thoughts. So we'll go back to our panelists again, if you can, please. Good. Thank you. Great. So any other questions? It sounds like this has been a good presentation for you, that you guys have learned a lot, and it's opened your mind a little bit more to looking more into this and addressing some of those challenges. And I think one of the things that Keith had talked about when we were talking is that you're not going to get it the first house you build. You're not going to be perfect with panelization. And it kind of goes back to what we were talking about yesterday on our panel. You have to get your systems in place. You have to work with your people. You have to get the buy-in from your staff, and then work with that technology as well. So people, product, technology are super important. And then just really continuously improving. So you may not see the payoff today, but if you continue with it, your processes will improve as long as you're evaluating it each time and taking those lessons learned and incorporating them in your process.
Your first product is very important for your success. Don't take your largest product, your most complicated product, a real simple, easy to do, home, and do that. Start with that, and then get good at that, and then, and then move up. But don't start big and go, you'll get frustrated.
Yeah.
Ryan, I did have a question for you that I forgot to ask, and that was on if I'm like a mid-sized builder and I want to get into modular and there's no modular plants in my area, what can I do? How's the best way to make that happen?
Well, yeah, and it really depends, on timeline, right? As we're moving across the nation, we're doing stuff. If you were saying, hey, if I wanted to do it through S2A, then it's just going to be the timeline of when we're built. But we were building out of partner factories prior to us needing to build our own. So I would just say again, go try and go look at everything that's fairly close to you. But again, on top of that is, if somebody has to ship something 800, 900 miles, that may seem like a long way and but take out the calculator, add it up, it might fit. So I wouldn't, feel like transportation is that big of an issue when you really add it up. And then just to add to, anybody that's thinking about, going into this and looking deeper into these things, don't feel like you're a pioneer and you're going to take a bunch of arrows riding into the wilderness right there. People have been doing this there. It's happening. It's been happening for a long time. It's just getting a lot cleaner and a lot quicker. It's not a pioneer take an arrow thing anymore.
No,
Great.
no.
Thank you. We do have another, sorry, I didn't mean to hit that. We have another question. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Are there any adjustments that your design community has to make when you switch to panelization? I'm thinking about your architect and your structural engineer in particular.
I mean, we have internal architects, and they've just been panelizing forever, so they pretty much know how everything's put together. So there isn't a big major, when we roll out a new product. But it takes, for new products, it can take up to, 7-8 weeks, for timing. We also use a company in China. Well, I'm sorry, Vietnam. And they're the ones that are doing the takeoffs and doing the counting and doing all that. And it's amazing the quality of work at a labor hour that's, a lot better than if it was back here in the States. So, we have our own architectural services in the United States as well as over in Korea. I mean, it's Vietnam. Sorry, Vietnam.
Cool. Thank you. Any other questions? All right. I think that's pretty much all we have today. Again, I want to thank the panelists for being here and for zooming in. We really, really appreciate you taking the time to answer these questions and to be with us today. Do you guys have any last thoughts of wisdom or last words you want to leave us with before we end our panel?
I would just suggest is don't be too quick to make a decision on this until you actually lift up every rock. By the way, the name of that company in Vietnam is called Platinum Global. And they've been working with us for almost 7 years. There's a lot of builders that use them. All the big builders use them. Instead of bringing people in, you have peaks and valleys of new product. So it's a nice flexible workforce that's very quality oriented.
Oh, thank you.
In agreement with Keith, people say measure twice, cut once. I'd measure 10 times before I cut, especially on your first ones. To really, really do it, try and see it happen. Maybe try and go ask a modular company if you're going that route. Hey, when's your next install? Go watch it happen. Go see it get built in the factory. Go see it get staged. Go see it get placed. Just depending on your timeline, obviously. But if you got the time, I think you'd do yourself a real good service by just measuring 15 times before you cut.
Cool. Great. Thanks again, guys. And thank you, everybody, for being here today. I think that's it. Take care.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you.
Enjoy Phoenix.